if they expect me to walk away from Luton with nothing, I'll make very sure there's nothing to walk away from.
Hello and welcome back to the Oak Road Hatter podcast. I'm Billy Mully, today joined by Jamie Castle. Jamie, we're back, the two of us. It's been a while since I've been on one. It's a while since the two of us have done one together, but glad to be back for what is a very exciting end to this Premier League campaign.
Yeah, good to have you back. As we were chatting off air, you're fresh back from NYC, so I'll forgive you for any lapses of concentration during this episode. We are all human, and I know how tough those flights back from New York are. But no, all good. Good to be back on just us two, and looking forward to previewing a game that is probably pretty hard to preview given circumstance, and obviously City's game last night was a bit interesting too.
And looking on to the football, it's set to be a very exciting end to this campaign, as we've said, Jamie. It's 6 games to go. It couldn't be tighter where we are in the Premier League campaign. Points deduction still somewhat uncertainty around the appeals, but as things stand, it is so close. Looking at that Premier League table, games don't get tougher than this. Games, across the world don't get tougher than this. Man City away, the arguably and probably definitively has proven over the last couple of years the best team in the world away from home. Erling Haaland had an absolute field day against us last time out, and yeah, when you look at it like that, it's going to be a tough game, but we've come through a lot of tough games this season, and yeah, I'm looking forward to it. Not necessarily because I think we're going to go there and get a result, but I think the way we've tested ourselves against the best teams in this division, the way we've played against some of the best teams, and when we've been, on bare bones, we've actually produced some of the best football, and you can just look at the Bournemouth game there to evidence that. We'll start with Man City. We've spoken already about how good they are. They had their Champions League clash against Real Madrid, and without them being sort of vintage Man City, they still proven that they are absolutely fantastic and probably the best team in the world. It's going to be a tough one.
Just a little bit. I think tough's probably an understatement. Obviously, already played them twice this season. Lost both times, but I think we've made a decent account for ourselves on both times. Obviously, in the first home game, went 1-0 up by half time. Then in the end, their quality just shone through in the 2-1. In the cup game, I do remain of the opinion that it wasn't a 6-2 game. I think Tim Krul let in a fair share of his goals in that game, and I think if we'd have played Kaminsky, it probably would have been max 4-2, maybe even 3-2, and given the scoreline and game state, maybe we'd have gone on and scored again. But yeah, I think we've definitely not embarrassed ourselves in our game against Man City. I agree with you. They are the best team in the world. I think clearly Arsenal and Liverpool are doing really well to compete with them this season, and I think Arsenal in particular are an excellent side defensively. I think defensively probably better than Man City this year, but just the players and the strength and depth that City have. I mean, it was nice of Pep to rest De Bruyne for the big game on Saturday. Obviously, he knows the challenge that's coming up for him. Which I do say in jest, but I think in a way, Man City probably wouldn't want a game like Luton Town on Saturday, given the fact that they've just come back from the Bernabeu and scored 3 goals, but let in 3 as well, and it makes the game next Wednesday for them massive if they want to progress to the semi final and retain their European crown. And a team like Luton Town won't allow them to breathe, and it's just the way we play. We are aggressive. We are front footed, and I think that they would definitely prefer a game against a side that sort of sits off and just lets them pass the ball around, lets them score once or twice, and then has a nice 1 or 2-0 win. And that's a team that we're not. I mean, if you look at Arsenal, I think they definitely were foot off the gas, despite what Edward said in that second half against us. But still, I mean, that second half we did dominate large share of the ball and still made it tough for them. So yeah, I think like you, I'm really looking forward to the weekend. Not because I think we're going to go up there and get 3 points, but it would just be a very interesting game to see how it plays out. And ironically, I mean, I said this about the Arsenal game too. I think going up to the Etihad on Saturday feels more a bit like doing your duty rather than because you really want to go and really want to go to the Etihad and see Man City. It's just one of those where you just want to go up, do your duty, do your bit for the team and for the club, and hopefully get back fairly unscathed, if not goal difference, but at least injuries, and then look ahead to what is a huge 5 games after that coming up.
Yeah, I guess it's interesting in the fact that both us and City have more important fixtures to come up. And I say that part being true because of obviously the next game for City is a quarter-final at home to Real Madrid, a competition that is massive for City because, you know, they got their first one last season. They're defending it. I don't know if you ask a City fan, what is more important to them this season. The answer probably is both, because they are that good and they have that large and quality of squad that, you know, they realistically can win both. But it does make it interesting from a selection perspective. I think there was an article that came out about Rodri saying that he needs a rest because he's played a lot of football of late, but also Luton. You know, we're kind of cancelling this one out in terms of expecting any points from it. We want to give a very good account of ourselves, as we do in every game, but you know, getting a point would be absolutely fantastic, let alone all 3. City are just a level above of anybody in this division, I think, and you know, I think we've seen that this season. Going on to the current situation at Luton, Jamie, we've seen, you know, we've been hit by injury after injury, and I know we've mentioned this throughout the campaign, and I've seen a lot of fans from other teams kind of dismissing the fact that we've got this injury crisis because, you know, other teams at various stages of this campaign have had, you know, 10 players out. But I think the difference for Luton is that it's been a sustained period where we've been missing key players. So, you know, I think Forest had 10 players missing for maybe a couple of games. We've had 10 or 11 players missing for, you know, 6 weeks or whatever it is. And we've all been speaking about it as it being a hindrance. But do you see it as being a massive hindrance when you consider how well some of the players on the fringes of things have stepped up? I know naturally if we had Sambi Lokonga playing, if we had Adebayo playing, our survival chances would have been boosted. But it sort of puts us in a strong position where you think whoever we play come these last 5 games will be competitive. If the players on the fringes of things are required, then you still have that belief that we can survive.
Yeah, that's a really difficult question to, I guess, assess, because I think, as you say, if we had a team that included Sambi, Eli, Osho, and/or Mads and/or Bell, then of course we will be in a much better position from a squad perspective, because not taken away from the performances that the lads that have come in have put in, those players that I've just mentioned are fundamentally like that they are accretive to the team that we have. They would strengthen us massively. But having said that, as I said, the boys that have come in have done really well. And ironically, not that we needed it. It's instilled even further this sort of like us against the world mentality. This sort of band of brothers group that we have had for the best part of 10 years now, but even more so. And again, ironically, now hopefully the end is near in terms of this massive crisis, and hopefully we can get 2, maybe 3 or 4 back for the Brentford game. Ironically, if we were then to now add back Sambi and or Eli and or Osho and Chio for the Brentford game, not only have we got the quality back in the 11, but we've also got this sort of enhanced mentality in terms of like, you know what, lads, like we've had a really shit hand dealt to us given the injuries, and we're still in this. We're still fighting. We've got 5 games to go. It is in our hands because we host Everton, we host Brentford. We know if we win all of those last 5 games, we are safe. And okay, I'm not saying we will win all of those last 5, but I mean, certainly if we win the 3 home games, then we've got a very high percentage of being safe. So yeah, I think kudos to the lads that have come in. Proud of each and every one of them. Okay, maybe at times have lacked quality and have lacked the results, but they certainly haven't lacked the fight and the belief that we can stay in this league. And that fundamentally is all that we as fans could ask for. And okay, maybe we're not overachieving based on our own expectations. I think we as Luton fans, I think if you did a poll at the start of the season, probably a fair share would have said, yeah, we are going to stay in this league. But let's not forget the general Premier League market view that no, Luton Town are going to go down, Derby's points record, etc. So based on that, we are overperforming. So to still be in it, sort of we're fighting and it's looking like it could go down to that Fulham at home. And I tell you what, if it's a situation where it's like if we win at home to Fulham and we stay in the league, then damn, I can't wait for that game, because that game is going to be phenomenal. I think the atmosphere is going to be incredible. So yeah, it's just a really exciting end to the season, and just hope, despite all I've said about how well those lads that have come in have performed, I just hope we can get the likes of Sambi and Eli and Chio and that back, because I think if we do, then I'm very confident that we will stay in this league.
There was one particular post that I said, I don't know if you saw it as well. I think it was from a Forest fan that said, "How can you moan about how having 10 or 11 players out when you've got players such as Burke, Clark?" There was a list of 8 players that he put down when you've got all of them playing. And I think that just shows how well some of these players that probably considered being on the fringes of things have done. Clark, who, you know, if we had Sambi and Barkley, he'd be very much pushing in terms of the performances he has returned. But, you know, he's not a first name on the team sheet kind of player. He's sort of grown into that role since Sambi's been out, and he's been absolutely fantastic, and he deserves to be recognised by opposition fans. Same with Burke. If we had all our centre-back options available, would he get in the starting 11? Again, it's a question that we probably won't have answered, because we probably won't have all our centre-backs fit and available, but he has stepped in and he has been Premier League quality, which is brilliant to see. And there's a few other players that this Forest fan mentioned. So for me, looking at that, you just have to, you know, take your hat off to those players that, you know, a lot wouldn't have considered Premier League quality, but have stepped up into roles and in positions where they've had to take on a lot of responsibility in some higher pressure matches as well. You think of how important that Bournemouth victory was. Some of the individual performances from those sort of said players were absolutely incredible. Going on to something else, Jamie, kind of hypothetical as well, but we've mentioned a long list of injuries. We've been hinted to that a few players could be back in this running. If players like Sambi, Adebayo, I don't think Jacob Brown's anywhere near, so I'll leave his name out for now, but players like that, if they were deemed available for City, do you risk them at all?
No, not at all. Unless we have some of the 11 that played against Bournemouth out due to injury. I know Issa's out because of the parent club link, but there's no point. I mean, how much would playing Osho over Hashi have on the result? For example, maybe 1-2 goals, but is 1 or 2 goal difference worth it for what could be 3 points next Saturday? Right. I would sooner not risk your Osho or your Sambi and play Pelly or Hashi instead and lose 4-0 than play them and lose 2-0. That's just like the basic maths in my head. 3 points are worth way more than 2 goal difference. And even talking about the 4-0 scoreline, I think we're in a privileged situation in terms of playing Man City at a time where if they are 2 up at half time, then I would expect the second half to be a lot like the Arsenal second half, where they are foot off the gas. Let's just get all our players through without causing any unnecessary stress and get them off in time for the game against Madrid on Wednesday. So that for me is again another sort of shining light on that game. So no, absolutely not. Unless they are 100% fit and ready to go, there's no need, because that Brentford game next Saturday is huge, because not only is it a game that we can win and add 3 points to our tally and get closer and or above Everton or Forest, but also Brentford are also in reach, and it is a 6-pointer. Brentford are in that battle, and wouldn't it be nice that despite all this discourse from the Everton and Forest fans saying that we're sort of without the points deductions would be nowhere near, it'd be nice, wouldn't it, if we stayed up above a team that was unaffected by points deductions. So that's the way I look at that Brentford game in a week's time. So yeah, absolutely not worth risking any one of that injury contingent.
And it's weird how we sort of within ourselves categorise all these fixtures. This fixture is still part of that Arsenal and City, Arsenal and Spurs kind of games where, you know, it's not the last 5 games. You have a completely different mindset, I think, from Brentford onwards, especially when you view them as you know, all 5 of those games we feel are winnable, especially when you consider that the likes of West Ham, Wolves probably won't have anything to play for. West Ham maybe actually with Europe in mind, but you know, they are all games where we think that with a strong 11 we can attack that particular fixture and go on and get 3 points. Looking at the tactical battle, Jamie, we saw 2 different performances against City. We saw the one in the league where, you know, we weren't fully defensive, we weren't, you know, in too low of a block, but we did let City have a lot of the ball and we did soak up a lot of pressure. We broke out very well, and Adebayo's goal was pure evidence of that. But we also then saw us in the cup really take it to them and go man for man and really battle individually, which, you know, brought on 2 different kind of results. It's the way we want to play. It's the way we've played, you know, kind of since then and a little bit before then. Do you think there's any sort of adaptation to the way we go about this sort of man-for-man approach that saw Erling Haaland have a field day in the end, scoring 5?
I think we'll certainly remain man-for-man. I think that's the way Edwards clearly wants to defend. And okay, it's City away, but I think if you look at Spurs away and Arsenal away, we were to an extent man-for-man. Okay, maybe that there was a time where we doubled up, maybe out wide, etc. But yeah, I mean, Teden Mengi has shown this season just how phenomenal of a centre-half he is, and that there is nowhere better to learn than at the Etihad against either Erling Haaland or Julian Alvarez in that number 9. So yeah, I think there's nothing to lose. You go man for man. Maybe it's less aggressive in terms of, look, okay, you man mark him, but don't risk too much in terms of diving in and trying to nip the ball away. Just sort of stay touch tight and make sure you either put him on the weaker foot or show him outside or show him in the areas where we feel that they are less dangerous or we are stronger. But in terms of that man-for-man marking and making sure that everyone has their man, I can't see us changing away from that. So I think in terms of tactically, our performance will be a lot like that Spurs game and the Arsenal game. I thought in both games we defended overall fairly well. Again, the goals we conceded frustrating, their mistakes rather than sort of defensive issues in terms of tactics. Certainly the Spurs one, clearly with that the Issa own goal, and then Son deflection, and then obviously Hashi own goal in the Arsenal game. So there was nothing wrong generally from a tactical perspective against either Spurs or Arsenal. But yeah, we go there with the same sort of tactical setup and just hope that maybe mistakes aren't happening in that game, and if we are flawless from a defensive perspective, then there's absolutely no reason why we can't get something at City. And all this talk that we've spoken about in terms of City's a write-off, and it's really on the last 5 games. But stranger things have happened. There is no reason why we can't go to City and get something. I mean, it's the Premier League run in. Lots of talk about the Championship being the best league in the world in terms of anyone could beat anyone, but the Premier League has many examples of games where sort of lower half teams have gone away with 5-6 games to go to sort of the big 6 and got points when they've needed them. I think the Palace 3-2 sticks in mind. I think ironically the one that Andros scored the absolute worldie in. So yeah, like teams like your Luton and your Crystal Palaces can go away to City absolutely and get something. So yeah, I'm not saying that I'm confident we'll get something, but you always think, why can't we?
And just circling back to Teden and Mengi, because it was a very strange game when we played City, because obviously Haaland scored 5. He was tasked with going man to man, but I still went away from that game thinking, you know what, he'd done a fairly decent job. It was the way City were creating chances for him, and you know, going man to man with a absolute machine like Haaland brings about those kind of results, especially when he's bang on form like he was. But Mengi as well, we would have learnt from that. We've said that this will be a great learning experience for him, but I just sort of, the development we've seen from him from the first game back whenever that was to now is incredible. And even from that City game to now is, you know, night and day kind of difference. He's been absolutely fantastic. And not only has he defended Jules very well, read the game very well, he's had to become this sort of mature leader on the pitch, given for you know, various points of this season he's been the only fit centre-back. That kind of experience and the weight of responsibility all adds up, and I think we're seeing this version of Teden Mengi who will believe he's got what it takes to stop Erling Haaland, and that's exactly what you need, a player who has that kind of mentality.
Yeah, spot on. I think you're right. In that cup game, ironically, Haaland scored 5, but absolutely none of them were Ted's fault. He was phenomenal that game, and I mean, you can't say that he pocketed Haaland given what Haaland did to us, but he was man to man, and he gave Haaland a really tough game. And as I said, if we probably had Kaminsky in goal, then I don't think he gets 5. He might have scored 2 or so, but he certainly doesn't score all 5. And yeah, back on Ted in terms of more generally, he's been phenomenal, and I think Edward mentioned in one of his press conferences that he's future leader material, and it's weird because of course I want to stay in this league because I want to see Luton Town in the Premier League, but I also want to stay in this league because I want to see Teden Mengi stay at Luton Town, and if we go down, then there's obviously there's a risk to that, because he's definitely a man that deserves to be a Premier League defender. And if we do stay up and he stays with us, I absolutely see a situation where he's a future captain for Luton Town. He's leading material. I mean, some of the quotes that he came out with along the lines of, like, I'll die for 3 points. Like, that is everything you want to hear as a fan. And now to have, I think, the most minutes of any Luton Town defender this season, yeah, what a buy. If it wasn't for Ross Barkley and the performances he's put in, he'd be clearly the best summer signing. You could probably brand him as the best summer signing that commanded a transfer fee. I think if that's the category, then he wins it hands down.
Yeah, I think you sum it up perfectly. Where it's not just the performances and absolutely performing to the highest level consistently as well. We've seen our centre backs fall like dominoes at points this season, but his consistency and always, well, pretty much always being available is invaluable to us. And his mentality as well, which, yeah, as you say, the quote, "I'll die for 3 points," just shows you what a player we have on our hands, and a player that's only going to get better. It's hard to, I struggle to imagine sometimes that he's only 21. He's got such an incredible future ahead of him, with or without Luton. We very much hope it's with Luton. And you start to think, though, imagine if we did get relegated and players like Teden and Mengi decided to stay and try and get us promoted. It's, again, hypothetical scenario, but imagine that happens. You get this real excitement that we could do something special in the Championship. And yeah, he's been such an incredible signing. We've spoken at large this season about our recruitment team and how they've continued to thrive with the demands of meeting Premier League standards. Found an absolute gem in Teden Mengi, and ironically, he was the one that a lot labelled to be injury prone, and he's been the one that we've had to depend on more than most this season. And even that Bournemouth game where he went down a couple of times, and you feared for what was to come, he got back up and just showed the absolute warrior he is. I think we could speak at length about how good he's been, and the sort of incredible future he has. We're going to head into a short break. When we're back, we're going to look into the points deduction that Everton have received for their second breach, and we're also going to get Jamie's score prediction. We are back for part 2 of today's episode, and we're turning attention to the points deduction that Everton have received for their second breach of the campaign. I guess the Premier League's come under a lot of scrutiny this season for points deductions, and Everton have now been handed what was their second. It was 2 points. There was a real uncertainty as to whether they'd get more or less than their initial points deduction, given it was a second breach within the same sort of period. Ended up being 2 points. It takes them down from 29 to 27, 2 points above us as things stand. It's just a real mess, and we've spoken again at large about how much of a mess the situation is, but Everton's situation and the fact that it hasn't really followed the logic of their first or Nottingham Forest's situation as well. It just points fingers towards the Premier League and the fact that there's no consistency.
Yeah, and sort of lost for words in terms of, you say, the inconsistencies and the reasonings in terms of what has happened with the points deductions for Everton to first be docked 10, which in hindsight I thought was a bit too severe. I think fair. Got given 4 back to 6 is fair, and the quote I keep coming back to was it in the report done by the commission at the time, was that 6 points is deemed a minimum but sufficient deduction for a breach of PSR. I think, yeah, fine, completely agree with that. I was happy with that. And then for Forest to then be deducted 4, which, okay, was 6, and then 2 given back for cooperation. I mean, if you get 2 points back for cooperating with the Premier League, that basically says that anyone can breach PSR. No, they breach PSR. Go to the Premier League and say, "Oh, sorry guys, we've breached PSR," and then just get 2 points back anyway. It's just, it's almost like giving a murderer sort of 6 years back on a life sentence because they've gone to a police station and put their hands up. It's, well, sorry, you've still killed someone. That's still a life sentence. You're not going to get a reprieve just because you've come and said sorry for it. So it just makes a bit of a mockery of the rules, and then for Everton to then only get 2 points for the second breach, and the base of that was 5 points, and then they get 2 points back for double jeopardy, but they still broke the rules again. Okay, yeah, it's two of the 3 years that are in question are the same, but they've still breached. So surely they should have seen from the previous year that they're running close to the wind and all have breached PSR. Maybe we should have rectified things in the following year, but chose not to. And then to get 1 point back for the Russia-Ukraine conflict, because one of their owners, Usmanov, is Russian and was sanctioned, and it meant that he couldn't put £20 million into the club for a sponsorship deal that he had previously agreed. It really is just crazy, that because of the sponsorship deal they get a point back. What about all the other teams that haven't breached PSR and abided by the rules? Should they all get a bonus point as like a well done for meeting PSR despite this? Despite a shock to the economy that obviously was in terms of the Russia and Ukraine conflict. It's just a bit of a mess, and frustrating. First of all for Everton, because you've got 8 points. The Premier League requested 17 and they got 8 points. So you think, okay, fine, but they've breached by a lesser amount than Forest and they get half the points deducted. And you just think, where does that make sense? But Forest still appeal and are trying to get more points back than 4. It does mess with your head a little bit, because then you also think about the judgment of the appeals will be after the season, so we could beat Fulham on the final day to stay up by a point or two, and then Forest get 2 points back and stay up on goal difference, and it just, when does it end? And I think there was a piece in the Eye newspaper this morning in terms of potential legal challenges from us and Brentford, especially if the points deduction from Everton that goes into next season now, because there's this third breach apparently the 2 points that they got just recently was down to the admitted breach that Everton held their hands up for, but there's another potential breach that is being debated in the courts based on rules and regulations as to whether something should be added back. So that could fall into next year now, and what if then Everton get another 4 points next year and stay up by 3 points this year for a breach that fell in this year, and we could have stayed up if they would have given 4 points last year. It's just a chasm of absolute mess, basically. No team knows whether they're coming or going. You've got Leicester, I think, could have stayed up last year if the Everton points deduction that they got this year for the last year breach was last year. I'm pleased I'm not a lawyer, because that case and all the complications that there are to it in the courts is mind spinning. So yeah, there was a lot in that answer, but it just shows the complexities that there are to it, and it's not as simple as saying, oh yeah, but City have breached 115 times, where's their penalty? Because if it's this complex for what is simply one or two breaches for Everton and Forest, I wouldn't want to know how complex that City case is for what is 50 times the amount of breaches. So yeah, I'm fairly happy that we're little old Luton, we're abiding by the rules, and if we stay up by points deductions or not, then I don't care. If we go down, then I don't care, because I know that we can go down in the faith that we've abided by all the rules and regulations, and we're doing things right. And no matter what league status we have or what position we are in the pyramid, I know that we are a club that are based on sort of law-abiding standards as the rest of football should be, and I think the sooner the independent regulator comes in, the better, because a lot of this mess, I think, is come from this being a proposed solution, because the Premier League are now chasing their own tails to show that they are doing things right, but I'm making an absolute mess of it.
Yeah, and I think the kind of circles you got yourself into there just shows you how complex everything is. I think we've really only scratched the surface when you look at both situations of both clubs. When you look at sort of the individual charges and you look as to how they came about, it's incredible. And you just think that whoever ends up going down this end of the season will be filling themselves with ammunition to take to the courts, because there's so much already packed into what has happened that Luton could be using as ammunition in court. Same with Forest and Everton. It's a situation that I don't know how sort of will be solved and how all parties will sort of come to an agreement or some sort. It's just a real mess. And I guess as well, it's the first year that Premier League clubs have been sanctioned like this, so it's always going to be a little bit of chaos attached to it. I just can't believe that in a division as professional and as accomplished as the Premier League's supposed to be, how there is just all this uncertainty and no real consistency at all. Let's turn attention back to football, because that's where our interests lie. I'm going to get a score prediction from you, Jamie.
Bloody hell! It literally could be anything. It could be 1-0, 4-0, 4-2. It could be 1-0 Luton from a last minute winner. It could be anything. I think probably the most likely outcome for me is that City get in front, have a fairly comfortable lead at half time, and then just see the game out as it is. And we'll fight and try and get something back from it, but we'll just fall short on quality given the injury issues we have. So I'm going to go Man City 2, Luton Town 0 at both half time and full time.
Yeah, I think it will follow a similar pattern to what you say there. I think City will take, I say early, but I think a lead within the first sort of 25 minutes, go into the break comfortable. I do think we'll score, but I don't think it'll be enough to trouble them too much. I'll go for 3-1 City. I think when you just consider the quality they have in their starting 11 and probably 15 players beyond that, it's just incredible, really. And the fact that they weren't really at their best and still went to the Bernabeu and drew 3-3, I think just shows what an incredible team they are when they're on or off it. Yeah, it's going to be a tough outing, but I think we'll do ourselves proud again. So I'll go for 3-1. That is it for today. A big thank you to everyone for watching. A big thank you for you, Jamie, for joining. And we'll be back past the City game where hopefully we're talking about an additional point on the board. Who knows? Stranger things have happened in football. Until then, it is goodbye from us.